The Legend of Zelda, possibly one of the most recognizable titles in gaming history and spanning every Nintendo system since the Nintendo Entertainment System, continues to this day to be one of the pinnacles of gaming. In 1992, Link spun his way onto the Super NES for the third installment of the franchise, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Returning to the first game's top-down adventure RPG format, the game is one of the most instantly recognizable titles, only behind Ocarina of Time. The game uses a standard Super NES controller, with the D-pad being for movement, of course, A grabbing items to push or drag, and early in the game adding another feature I'll talk about later. B swings the sword, while holding it charges it up for a deadly spin attack, which deals double damage. X uses the currently selected item, which I'll go into later as well. Y opens and closes the map screen. And lastly, Start, which opens the inventory to allow players to pick their items. A Link to the Past features a beautiful map, full of vibrant colors and textures. They add to the game immensely. The world is at the same time adorable and alive, and especially in the larger sprites, mostly bosses, it's hard not to feel overwhelmed by the care put into every sprite. The story of the game follows a similar format to most Zelda games, but with the twist that all of them have as well. Princess Zelda has been captured, and it is up to Link to step up to his destiny and become the hero of Hyrule. The story goes like this. A wizard in the court of the King of Hyrule betrays the king, kidnapping 7 maidens, including Princess Zelda, who sends telepathic messages to Link to prompt him into action. Link quickly finds his uncle dead, and taking his sword goes to save the world. All seems to be going smoothly until Link learns of the Dark World, a realm opposite to Hyrule that holds the Triforce and is ruled by Ganon. After obtaining the Master Sword, Link must journey through the Dark World, rescuing the 7 maidens to reach and hopefully defeat Ganon. The game progresses through dungeon after dungeon, with side missions peppered in to give new items and weapons to help with the game. The first dungeon in the game, effectively working as a tutorial, is Hyrule Castle. The entrance to Hyrule Castle is found in the courtyard of the castle under a bush, and after falling into the hole, Link finds his uncle and obtains his sword and shield. The dungeon is split into 2 distinct parts, before Zelda and after Zelda. The first half is basic tutorial, leading to the first mini-boss in the game, a soldier with a ball and chain guarding the princess's cell. After defeating him, Zelda follows Link and the game becomes darkened, and rooms often require lighting up to navigate. This dungeon presents Link with 2 new items. First, the lantern, which can be used to light torches at the cost of a small amount of mana, and the boomerang, a mid-ranged weapon that doesn't deal damage but stuns enemies for a few seconds. After clearing Hyrule Castle, Link is set on his next task, find the Elder, and ask about the Master Sword. By talking to a young boy in the middle of the nearby village, the whereabouts of the Elder are marked on the map, and Link can visit him, where he is told he needs to find the 3 pendants. Around this point, Link will come across his first bombs, which make a somewhat difficult to use weapon, and allow certain walls to be knocked down, revealing secrets. The first pendant is located nearby the Elder's hideout, and features the earliest puzzles in the game. This dungeon introduces many new mechanics, such as armored enemies, such as the Cyclops creatures that can only be harmed by an arrow to the eye. On that note, this dungeon also unlocks a new weapon for Link, the bow and arrows, allowing him to deal damage from a long range. After navigating the dungeon, Link is confronted by 6 large bull statues, which can be struck with the sword or more effectively shot with arrows. The bulls attack in a simple pattern of bouncing in a circle before stomping all the way across the room. After killing 5 of the living statues, the 6th will begin a more aggressive strategy of chasing and landing in the spot Link is or was standing on. After defeating it, the player is awarded a pendant and a heart container, and can return to the Elder to find another new item, the Pegasus Boots, allowing Link to sprint, sword outstretched, by holding A. At this point, the last 2 pendants are marked on the map, and the Elder also mentions an item on the far side of Lake Hyla. Upon running to the far side of Lake Hyla, at the southeastern area of the map, Link can use bombs to reveal a new item, the Ice Rod, a weapon that allows Link to both paralyze and deal damage to enemies, at the cost of mana. Next, Link must head to the library, located just south of the village, and using the Pegasus Boots, charge and knock down the Book of Modala, allowing him to translate Highland language, and gain entrance to the Desert Temple. The Desert Temple features new enemies, but not much beyond that, although I will give a special mention to the evil, incredible, laser-shooting robots and the floor tiles of death. This dungeon features another new item, the Power Glove, which allows Link to lift greenish boulders. After exiting out of the bottom left corner of the dungeon and moving a boulder, Link can fight the next boss, two worm-like creatures who pop out of the ground, shooting clumps of dirt as they do. Arrows and the ice rod both work fantastic against the bosses, although they can only be hit in the head, making it difficult to always connect hits. The next dungeon is a large tower, located on top of a mountain. When climbing the mountain, Link will meet an old man, who will give him the magic mirror, allowing him to warp between the dark and light worlds and heal him. A short puzzle gets Link to the temple. The main puzzle in this dungeon is switches, which when hit, raise or lower either brown or blue tiles. This level is also filled with many new enemies, including the obnoxious random movement caterpillars. Early on, there is a puzzle where Link must dodge evil flying floor tiles for a length of time until the door opens. The treasure of this dungeon is the Moon Pearl, which keeps Link from being a rabbit in the Dark World. Lastly, the first true annoyance of the game, the boss, a massive caterpillar that can only be hit in the tail, who can knock Link off the edges in his room to restart the whole battle. Next, Link finally has all the amulets, which means he can get the Master Sword. Link travels to the forest at the top left of the map, where you'll find a mushroom, which is important later, and the Master Sword, that is able to deal double damage and shoot sparkly beams when at full health. Next, Link must return to Hyrule Castle to go to the tower on top. Hyrule Castle Tower is filled with doors that only open when enemies are all defeated, but in all honesty is not that hard. Upon reaching Zelda, Link witnesses the wizard make her disappear, and Link must cut down the curtains and run into the next room to fight him. The wizard is definitely a challenging boss, as his attacks must be deflected back at him, but which attack he chooses seems unpredictable, with his attacks being an energy ball that can be deflected, a homing circle that explodes into smaller orbs, and lightning which is both hard to dodge and deals serious damage. With the wizard defeated, Link must go into the Dark World in order to save the 7 maidens and defeat Ganon. The first dungeon in this area is in the general vicinity of the Elder's hideout in the Light World. After navigating a maze, Link comes across a monkey, Kiki, who asks for rupees, 110 in total, to open the dungeon. This dungeon sees new enemies and increasingly difficult puzzles, a trend that carries on through the rest of the Dark World. The layout is unlike the previous dungeons, being a lot less straightforward and also featuring puzzles requiring Link to fall through holes in the floor to progress. In this dungeon, Link obtains the magic hammer, allowing him to pound in stakes and moles, and also has an incredibly short-range weapon. A major annoyance in this level comes from a new enemy that either mimics or mirrors Link's movements. While the mimickers are no problem, the mirrors must be carefully walked around while charging the sword, then shot in the back with arrows. The boss of this dungeon, a dragon with a mask, may seem hard, but really comes down to bombing or hammering its face, then spamming arrows. Following this, the player must make a quick side quest in the Light World, walking upriver to meet King Zora, who will give him the Zora Flippers, allowing him to swim. Now heading to the second dungeon, Link must go into the dungeon in the Light World, pull a switch, and return to the now flooded Dark World, swimming deeper into the dungeon. The dungeon introduces the grapple hook, a feature of Zelda that would be seen again and again, allowing Link to cross gaps and also stun some enemies and even kill certain enemies from a distance. Finally, Link encounters the octopus boss, who is incredibly easy, requiring him to chop up his little minions then focusing on him. The Skull Forest is next on the list. The dungeon itself isn't particularly hard, but is easily one of the most frustrating for the wrong reasons. The layout features a lot of grappling, and upon obtaining the fire rod, allowing Link to shoot fire to light torches or burn enemies, also gets puzzles based on this new item. Now, the annoyances. First off, the mummies. Although slow and only traveling in straight lines, these bitches take a trillion hits to kill. Second, the motherfucking hand. This hand constantly drops out of the sky, and if it lands on you, it drags you to the start of the dungeon. Good fucking luck doing puzzles when you can't hold still for more than a moment, and it usually comes at the worst times, making you choose between starting over or getting hurt. Lastly is the boss, the moth, who would be simple alone, but in a room filled with spikes flying all over, stabbing you repeatedly, all I can say is good fucking luck, you'll need it. After freeing the maiden, it's time to head out to where the village used to be and go to the Thieves' Dungeon. This dungeon features a lot of puzzles based on light, with light even revealing the boss. The player needs the Titan Mitt. the dungeon's item, to lift black boulders and be able to get to the maiden, locked in a jail cell. But after a puzzle is completed and she is taken to a room, a light reveals her to be Blind the Thief. Blind can be a pain. At first he's easy, but every time he is knocked down, he sends a head flying around the room shooting fireballs. Link's journey to save the maidens then leads him to the Ice Temple. As you can imagine, it's slippery as hell, but before entering, I would suggest going to pick up 2 power-ups. First, going south of the Thieves' Village, rescuing the creature behind the rocks, bringing him to the Light World, and getting your sword tempered for 4 times power, which will come in handy against the boss, and getting magic powder by giving the mushroom to the witch just outside where your sword was tempered, falling down into the cavern, spraying magic powder on the pot there, and being cursed to use half as much mana per spell. The whole dungeon serves as one long puzzle that can be tricky, but once you get it, you should fly through in no time. Also, Link will get the blue mail, causing him to take only half damage from attacks. The boss has 3 eyes encased in ice. Melt them out with the fire rod, then use the rest of your mana to burn the eyes before finishing them, if needed, with your sword. Next, you'll need a few more items, before you can even consider the Swamp Temple. First, almost a necessity, the Magic Cape, which can be found under a gravestone in the Light World behind some black stones by ramming it with the Pegasus boots. The cape allows Link to be both invisible and invincible, and makes the swamp boss much easier. Next, Link must travel to the 2 stone tablets, one near the tower in the Light World and one near the Water Temple in the Light World, to get the Ether and Bombos medallions. Lastly, Link must get the Ocarina, called the Flute, by going to the wooded circle southeast of the village in the Dark World, digging up the flute in the top right corner in the Light World with the shovel that is obtained during this, playing it for the boy, playing it for the boy's father in the Light World, talking to the father, then playing it for the Wind Vein in the town square, unlocking fast travel. Using the fast travel to go to the bottom left of the map, the desert, Link can use a portal near where he lands to go to the entrance of the dungeon, opening it with the Ether. The dungeon itself is short but very maze-like and features a new device, the Cane of Samaria, allowing him to make blocks to press switches, and in the next dungeon, platforms to ride on rails with. The boss of this dungeon is arguably the easiest. By using the cape, Link can walk right inside him and just mash the sword button to quickly destroy him without getting hurt. This is it, the penultimate dungeon. Zelda's here, waiting for Link. Before Link can enter though, he needs the Quake Medallion, which can be found in the Dark World's version of King Zora's Pool, by tossing a rock into a ring of other rocks. The Turtle Dungeon is short, but requires a lot of platforms to be made with the cane, and is costly in magic. Before the boss, at the far end of the hall is a wall that can be blown up. I cannot stress how important it is to walk through it to spawn near the boss. Apparently the item of this dungeon is the Mirror Shield, but I never found it. The boss is a 3-headed dragon, 1 normal, 1 fire, and 1 ice. The fire rod is needed to paralyze the ice head, and then it can be stabbed, while the ice rod does the same to the fire head. Then Link must evade the final head and hit the glowing part of it while it squirms around 5 times to kill it. Finally, it's Ganon's tower. This is it. After destroying the entrance with the maidens, Link must go down the stairs and navigate to the big key across an invisible floor and re-beat the first boss, the bull statues, but on ice, to get the red mail and gain the ability to climb the tower. Now I'm gonna admit, the game got too hard for me here. I couldn't get past the 3rd or so floor on the way up, after many tries, and eventually gave up, knowing there were 7 total floors, but after fighting 3 mini-bosses, Link gets to fight a stronger version of the wizard than Ganon at the Pyramid of Power. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past offers some of the greatest challenge I've ever had in a video game, up to the last part, feeling conquerable and giving an amazing feeling of pride upon finally besting a difficult boss. This game is fun all the way through, and with so much exploration, side quests, and just fighting to the bitter end, makes it a great, long, and rewarding game. Overall, I will give The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past a perfect 10 out of 10. On the next episode, we'll be reviewing F-Zero.